Everyone, welcome back. It's Bethany, and in this video we are going to play around with a gorgeous brand new stamp set from Pinkfresh Studio called Butterfly Garden. So they sent me over this beautiful stamp set. It has coordinating dies, plus it also has coordinating stencils if you would like to color your image in that way. Isn't this beautiful? I think it's so fun, and I have a really fun idea for how I would like to bring in a lot of color. I'm actually going to skip the stencil today, and I am instead going to use the stamp and the coordinating die. What I love about this is that the coordinating die will cut out the entire image at once. So no matter how you want to do this, if you want to use individual pieces and make a fun little wreath, whatever you decide to do, I love that everything gets cut out at once and it's super easy. We also have some coordinating dies for the letters. So we have it for hello, or the words I should say, and beautiful. So really, really pretty. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to set the die to the side. We'll come back to that in a minute, but I'm going to start with the stamp set. What I'll do is bring in my mini Misty. I have pulled some colors that I'm going to have fun with in just a moment, but I'm going to bring in an 80-pound cardstock, and this is sized at A2, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I am going to gently peel the backer away from the stamp. That way the stamp doesn't get stretched or distorted in any way. And what I want to do here is, to the best that I can, I want to center my stamp on the paper, because I am actually going to play with this image as is instead of, rearranging the pieces. So I think just about there is good, and I will further trim this down. So if I'm off a hair, then I can remedy that in just a moment. Okay, so I'm going to pull that up. That looks great. I'm also going to just condition this stamp really quickly, and because I'm going to do some heat embossing, I will go ahead and take some anti-static powder and prep my paper. That way my embossing powder will only stick to my Versamark instead of all over the paper. Okay, now I'm going to take some Versamark and really ink up this stamp. Okay, here we go. Just double checking that this is all in its spot, because I may double stamp. There we go. Press that down really nice. In fact, because of the size of this, it may be best to bring in this little stamp press. You'll love it. Okay, let's bring that up. Take a look. Oh, it looks good. Just for good measure, I will realign and add one more layer. Okay, just to make sure I got everything. Okay, there is our second. Just like that. And that should be just the ticket. Okay, I think that looks good. I will leave my stamp in my Misty just in case for some reason this doesn't turn out and I need to stamp a new panel. That way my stamp is all ready to go, but it's also aligned on the paper where I would like it to be. All right, so let's just move that to the side. We'll clean it off later if we don't end up using it. And now I'm going to bring in a little catch paper, and I'm going to bring in embossing powder that is white, and it is fine detail. Okay, add my embossing powder. Now this is going to be white on white for a moment because of the technique that I am going to run with for this card. But you can see, do you see? Isn't that pretty? And I think I got everything. Okay, I'm going to set that right up there. I'm going to take the rest of my embossing powder and just funnel that right back into the little jar. And now I'm going to heat this up. So when using a heat tool, you want to make sure that it is very, very hot before you go to melt your powder. So I'm going to let it heat up for a moment and then I'll go ahead and heat this up. Okay, so that is all finished. I just want to really take a look to make sure that I did melt all of the powder. I think there's a couple spots, especially with a big image like this, you just want to make sure everything's melted. And you'll know because if it's shiny, that means you have melted the powder. And if it is kind of matte and dusty looking, then that means it needs to have some additional heat. All right, I think that looks really good. Sorry you can't really see that, but it's going to be magical in just a moment. So now what I'm planning on doing is bringing in some color. I am going to use 5 of my favorite Pinkfresh Studio colors that I think work really well together. I have Coral Reef, Peach Fuzz, Lemon Whip, Mint, and Ocean Breeze. And first and foremost, I'm going to take my panel and I'm going to just tape it down to my surface. Okay, so let's tape this down just so it doesn't shift while I'm working. Just like that. And also like that. Okay, that looks good. Okay, I'm also going to bring in just this little holder for just a moment. And I'm gonna organize my little inks. Okay, so again, starting with Coral Reef, I'm going to get a little blender brush here. I can't decide if I want to do this color. Yeah, that should be fine. Whoops. And I'm going to make sure it's nice and clean because I used a different ink collection recently. So I just want to make sure there's nothing on the brush. And I am going to ink up with Coral Reef. I'm also going to use a little tap off paper. And I'm going to start, is this top? Let me make sure, yes, this is the top. I'm going to start over here on the top and I'm just going to start bringing in color. Okay, whoops, there we go. And as you bring in color, you're going to start to see the image that's underneath because that embossing is going to resist the ink. So wherever there is embossing, the ink will not be, right? So you're going to start seeing that beautiful look take effect. Now I'm going to remove this for just a moment because I want to try, oh goodness, I want to blend just as much as I can on the entire paper. And you'll see why in just a little while. Now, don't worry about that little line. That will be cut off, but I want to get as much of the paper as I can. Now I'm going to set my pink brush to the side, retape that down. Oh, that might not want to now that that has ink on it. I didn't really think that through. Okay, well, it should be fine. I'm going to now bring in Peach Fuzz, and I will do the same thing. Now, I'm keeping my pink brush out because I'm going to use it to kind of further blend. Ooh, I should have tapped that off a little bit, but that's actually going to be okay. Tap that off and go right on in. Actually, it looks fine. It will be okay. Okay, there we go. And doing roughly a little over an inch at a time. That looks nice. There we go. And then I will bring back just whatever is left on my brush to blend that pink into that nice orange. Isn't that pretty? I love how that looks. And then I'll just take this one as well. Continue to encourage that blend. I love that. So pretty. Okay, now I'm going to move on to Lemon Whip and do the exact same thing. This time I will put my pink brush away and I'll keep my orange out. Okay, Lemon Whip. And start blending the next section. Okay, and when I have that next color where I'd like it in terms of tone, then I'll just do the same thing I did last time, just using the extra that I have on the brush, not grabbing any more of the previous color, just using the leftover color and encouraging that little transition area. Isn't that pretty? I think that is so pretty, and these inks dry so nice. Okay, taking away my orange brush, now beginning with mint. Okay, now mint actually, it doesn't come in too harsh right away, so I don't really need to tap that off as much, and you will just learn your ink colors, which colors come in a little bit more bold and which come in fairly light. That way you know which ones to tap off and which ones are a little bit more forgiving in the beginning. So I'm going to do the same thing with my mint. Okay, that looks really good. Bringing back my yellow. And just kind of go back and forth between those two brushes with whatever's left on there. I am loving how this looks. So pretty. All right, now my last color is going to be Ocean Breeze. Very pretty color. I'll grab my blue brush, replace my yellow, keep my green, and let me wipe off this brush. And towards the edge of the paper, now actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over and do this side. Maybe just do that. Towards the edge, you know, the blend is a little bit more harsh, but that's okay because we're going to trim this down, so I'm not worried about it at all. There we go. And you can already see how smooth that ink is drying. I really like that. And if you get a couple little splotchy areas, do not stress, especially for this technique, because where we're going with this card, in your final card, you're not going to notice all of those little imperfections that seem so big and so eye-catching or distracting at this moment. So in your final card, you're just not going to notice it. Okay, I think that color is just about where I would like to go. Isn't that gorgeous? I love that. So pretty. Bringing that up into the green, just be a little bit more bold, encourage just a little bit more color there. Almost done. And you just know, your eye knows when you've reached that pleasing color tone, right? Bringing back my green brush to blend and going back with my blue. Okay, I think that looks really nice. One more little bit. Okay, now there is our panel. Is that pretty or what? I love that. Okay, now let's see. I think I'm going to trim the panel down. I think that's going to be my next step. So let me grab some A2 layer dies. That's going to help me decide on what kind of crop that I would like. Put my inks away and then we'll start doing all of our cutting. Okay, I'm going to bring in my A2 layer die collection and just decide on a crop. I think I'm going to just go one in. I think that is the nice look that I'm going for. And Oh, I think that's going to be just about right. So I'm going to decide on the crop where I would like that to go. Maybe bring it over just a little bit this way. See, this is where if you didn't have your stamp perfectly centered, you can take a moment here to do so. I think that looks good. So let me grab some tape. See if I can encourage that to stay down, and I will run that through my die cut machine. And if you're having trouble getting your tape to stick to the actual panel because of the ink blend that just happened, I would encourage you just to do all of your centering on your cutting plate. That way, once you have decided where you want your die to be, which I think I have to redecide now, right about there looks good to me, then, okay, then you can take your tape and essentially tape it to the plate. Oops, I got too many pieces there. And that will help keep that steady. Okay, here we go. And then we can cut. Okay, there we go. Remove my tape gently. Okay, and pop this out. And there is my trim down panel. Okay, now I'm going to keep my cutting plates handy because the next thing I want to do is locate the coordinating die, and I am going to trim all of this out. So let me center it. And again, before I get it perfected, I'll center it right on my cutting plate. That way I don't have to move it, but also so that I can tape my metal die to the plate. So I'll do that. Grab the other tape that I used earlier and tape. And pardon my cutting plates, they're getting a little worn, but you know what that means? It means a lot of beautiful things have been created if your cutting plates look like this. So much beauty comes from all of these marks. Okay, that looks great. Now I'm going to do my best to actually try and keep all of these pieces together for a moment. So I'm going to remove my little die here. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to leave these in their place. And the next thing that I want to do is I am going to take 120-pound cardstock and I'm going to cut this same thing out just on white. Now I'm opting for a very thick cardstock here because I'm going to end up layering these twice. And the thicker the cardstock you use, the more it bumps it up, but also the less amount of times you have to cut it out and layer it. So hopefully that came across less confusing. Kind of sounded confusing how I said that, but opt for thick because then you don't have to use as much paper when gluing them all together. Okay, let me run this through. I'll run this through and then we'll have multiple layers to play with. Okay, so now I have all of my layers cut out, and now, you guessed it, we're going to do the tedious task of gluing and layering these pieces on top of one another. Now, it's worth it. If you don't want to do this, you can definitely just stop there and not, cut this part out and just have a beautiful piece like that, but just wait for it. This is going to turn out so pretty. So yes, rather time-consuming and what people may refer to as a fussy card, but sometimes it is so refreshing just to not look at how long it takes to create and just enjoy the whole process and the whole feeling of creating. I think that sometimes the joy is in actually making something and given the opportunity to really slow down and be and play and experiment. And then the added joy is something beautiful at the very end, right? Okay, that's how I view creating, at least. I don't like to rush through things because crafting and creating is for me, right? It's my time to be. All right, so now I'll just grab all of the coordinating pieces, pop out any of the middles. Now you can keep these middles, these tiny little pieces, if you would like, and you'll see why you may want to at the end. I am going to not keep them, and it will be just fine. I'm popping out any pieces that need to be popped out, just those middles. I love the 120 pound because it is so thick that it doesn't take much. And when you're doing something as tedious as this, you want to make it as easy as possible on yourself. So that's why I don't use my 120 pound cardstock a lot, but I save it for times like this. I think I have a little tiny clog in there. I need to, there we go. Okay. I save this cardstock for times that which I really need it. Or times that it will just help get the look that I want achieved. Okay, so just lining all of these pieces one on top of another. You can also bring in a little block just to set all of my pieces under to give it some time to set. All right, I will continue just slowing down. This is a great time for you to turn on one of your favorite shows or some of your favorite music and just be. Okay, so I have finished layering all of my little die cuts. They look awesome. They look so pretty. Making sure that one lined up. Wiggle that into place. Okay, I'm just going to place that right under this little block and let all of those continue to set. And I think I'll build my card base because now we're going to bring our colorful piece back in and we're going to start gluing these beautiful pieces within our background. Okay, so I have my background piece here and I want to make a top folding A2 size card. So I have 110 pound cardstock trimmed to be 11 by 4 1/4, and then I'll place my middle score line at 5 1/2. Whoop. Whoops. Oh, I got that crooked, but you know what? We're going to be able to fix it. No problem. See how I accidentally ran off there? It's going to be just fine. Okay. Now let me see. Actually, I'll use that side as the back because you'd be able to see it on the front, but absolutely fine. So let's open up the little card here. Try to move these out of the way. There we go. Open up our card. Now I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to attach it to my card base with some glue. So I'm just going to take my time, place some glue all the way around here, making sure all of those little pieces are glued down. That way it stays very nice. Okay, now that I have a lot of glue on the back there, not too much, but just what we need, I'm going to turn this around and I will center this on my card and slide that into place because I just have a really narrow margin there, just how I like it. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to take one of these blocks because these are perfectly fine. And I'm going to let this now set. There we go. And then once this is all set, we will start adding our little pieces right back in there. This is going to be so pretty. I love it. I love the color. Look how smooth it dried. I think it's so pretty. It's so smooth and nice. Okay, now what I find is easiest, actually I'm going to add a little glue underneath this little guy, and I'm not going to worry about getting too much because I'm going to add glue everywhere now. So what I find is easiest is to add my glue to these little openings instead of the back of my die cuts, because then you're not getting as much glue on your fingers. You can just easily apply down and then take whichever coordinating die cut and place that right in there. It's gonna be so pretty. Okay, I am going to just kind of press that down. I'm gonna get a few done and then I'll lay a block on there just to let it really set up. So I'm gonna glue a few of these at a time. This will take no time at all. And if I remember, I will give you a final time for how long this actually took me in real life, because of course I'll edit this video down, but I always think it's interesting to hear the actual time it took somebody. Okay. All right, there we go. Here. All right. And it's easy to find and locate where everything goes because the shapes are pretty obvious for one thing, but also you just focus on which part of the rainbow you're working on, right? So you're looking for your pinks and your oranges. Now I'm gonna let that sit there while I work on the bottom. Okay, so let's have fun and do a little question of the day. I used to do this a lot in my videos and it was so fun. It's also a fun way to just build community too. So the question today is, what is your favorite book that you have ever read? This can be something from your school years. This could be something you read last week. Obviously, it's absolutely anytime, right? You never know when you're going to encounter the best book. Now, I always try to answer the question myself, and now I'm in a pickle because I'm trying to think of the best book I have ever read. I don't know if you're an avid reader, there is an app called Goodreads. It is phenomenal, and it helps you track what you read, and also allows you, after you've read it, to score it. So you can give it 1 to 5 stars. And I like it because it helps me keep track of what I have read throughout the year, and you can set really fun reading goals, but also because for me, after I am done reading a book and I move on to the next book, my mind, for some reason, and I've always been this way, completely erases what I just read. And I'm not sure why that is, because, you know, I'll recommend a book to my mom and she'll start reading it and then she will want to discuss it, right? And I can't even do that because I'm like, oh gosh, I totally forgot. I don't even remember that part. Or even if it's something I read pretty recently, it's like once the book is done, I enjoyed it in the moment, but then I move on, I guess. It's so silly. Now, my husband, on the other hand, has a wonderful memory, especially with movies. He's really good at that. But, you know, we all have the things we're good at, and for some reason, my mind just says, I can't store all of the, and maybe it's because, you know, maybe it's because I read nonstop too. Maybe my mind's just like, there's no way that we can store all of that for you. Right? Okay, let's focus on a sentiment. Now, I'm thinking what I'll do is actually bring in another stamp set that I have. And, oh, before I do that though, let me address, so you will have some little spots. Do you see how they're hollow in here? If you wanted to keep all those little pieces, you would just want to keep those and then glue those colored pieces right back in. For me, I just don't think it's completely obvious. Yes, you could. And my sentiment, I believe, is going to go down here. So these larger gaps are going to be covered, but that is just something you'll want to be aware of if you want it to be a true eclipse card or just to kind of complete that look. But you know, sometimes for the sake of sanity, I skipped that part. Okay, so now I'm going to clean this off because I'd left it in my MISTI just in case, but we did really well. So I'm going to take this stamp out and replace it on its little liner. Line that up really nice, just like that. Okay, now what I think I will do is I'm going to grab this set, and I'll link it down below. This is from a previous Pinkfresh Studio release, and I think I'm going to grab Happy For You. I love it. Before I turn it over, this is what it's going to look like. Sometimes it's hard to see it on that clear stamp. Okay, so I'm also going to trim this down, but I'm going to use that 120-pound cardstock once more because, whoops, my kiddos have been using my scissors lately, and that one that you just saw me bring out is completely stuck together. I need to do some scissor spa days because all my scissors are kind of gunky. They've been using them for little craft projects here and there, but you know, little kiddos, they don't know not to put glue or cut into gluey things and sticky things. So, okay, I'm going to use my 120-pound once more. And actually, I don't need, I think those sizes are just about good. We'll set these to the side. And that's what I'm going to stamp on. So I'm just going to place this kind of at an angle. Okay, and I want to heat emboss once more. So let's grab embossing powder, or I'm sorry, anti-static powder. I don't know why those two are so similar to me sometimes. I'm gonna ink this up with Versamark. Press this down. And I need to do that once more. Actually, it looks pretty good, but do I? I think that looks fine. It looks good. Okay. Now I'm going to grab some gold embossing powder. Grab my catch paper once more. And this will be the same process, except this time I'm going to use a fine detail in antique gold. And I think this nice, pretty warm tone is going to be just perfect with my colors. Okay, that looks phenomenal. So let's funnel the rest back in. Close this little guy. And again, I'm going to heat up my heat tool very hot before melting. And because this is a teeny tiny paper, I'm going to grab a little clip to keep my fingers from getting too toasty. Okay, how pretty is that? Isn't that nice? I think it's pretty, and I think it's going to look really nice with all of these nice soft tones. Okay, now let me grab the coordinating dies. I am lucky enough to have them, and I'm going to trim this out. Now I actually have a couple in there I need to poke out. I love this stamp set as well. The sentiments are super fun, super versatile too, and it's just a nice go-to to have. Okay, I'm gonna center that. Try to reuse some tape here. Okay, I'm hoping I lined that up well, but we will see. I'm gonna grab my cutting plates and cut that out. Okay, I'm gonna cut that out, and then I will cut 2 additional layers with my remaining 120-pound cardstock. Okay, so I was kind of thinking my favorite book through, and it's, you know, that was really an unfair question for me to ask, because me choosing my favorite book is absolutely, I don't know, it's impossible. So a few that I've read recently that I really, really enjoyed. One was called The Dream Daughter by Diane Chamberlain. Such a good book. And it's one of those that I didn't even read the back, because I feel like I read so much that I can kind of predict what's going to happen if I read the back. So I went in completely blind. Oh, it was so good. And I'm glad that I didn't read the back, because I don't know that I would have read it if I knew what it was about. It was phenomenal. I recommend that one to just about everybody. Okay, another one that I really liked recently was Spare by Prince Harry. So well done. And I really thought, I felt like I learned so much history about the royal family, and I just thought it was very well done. So I really enjoyed that and have been recommending that. And another one that I really enjoyed was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and that was written by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and it was really, really good. It was just a beautiful story. I couldn't put it down. I loved it. So that is another one that I have read recently that I really enjoyed. So I can't wait to hear what your recommendations are, because I love book recommendations. I actually ask quite often on my channel for book recommendations, just because I love to read. So I'm excited to hear your responses, or if you've read any of the ones that I have recently been enjoying, then let me know that as well, because, well, you know, I'm not going to be able to discuss it. Actually, you know, I will be honest though, those 3 books that I mentioned, I remember so many details, and that is when I can discern a really good book for me, because like I said, I like to kind of forget books really quickly. But those 3 books I can remember very vividly. They were so good. Okay, there is my sentiment. Happy for you. Isn't that nice? And I think I'm going to put it right down there. I think that is just perfect. Okay, let's add a little bit of glue, but also let's use some tweezers. I think tweezers are just going to really help me line that up. Take my little pin right back out. All right, now, as for creating time, I am at 1 hour and 11 minutes. More like 1 hour and 12 minutes. That is not bad. Honestly, a little over an hour, and I enjoyed myself. You can't watch a movie in an hour. And I have an added beautiful creation to give to somebody at the end. Isn't that pretty? Of course, I'll trim this video down so that it's not over an hour, but just for fun, that's how long it took me to create this. All right, I do not think at all that this card needs anything more, I'm going to skip embellishments because it's just complete. It feels complete to me, and I want to stop there. So if you enjoyed watching this, be sure to give this a thumbs up. I really love how this turned out. I think it is so pretty. And that beautiful effect that you get with the little die cuts all stacked together and then placed right back into that background. Oh, look at that. It is so fun. I really like that. I think it is just so pretty. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this inspired you. I love things like this because you can do this with any stamp set, right? You absolutely can use this technique with anything that you have in front of you, and it will just be really pretty. It's just another fun way to think about color, to add color, and really just have a fun card making process. Okay, be sure to answer the question of the day down in the comment section. I can't wait to hear your recommendations. And as always, I can't wait to continue crafting with you in the next video.